All right, and welcome. It's time once again for a fantastic power-packed episode of Evolved Sales Live. Welcome. I'm Jonathan Fisher. If you're an entrepreneur, today is an exciting time to be alive. The pace of innovation and opportunity in the U.S. has dramatically accelerated in recent years. And last year, over 5.4 million new businesses were founded, even in the midst of a pandemic. But only a tiny percentage of all those new businesses will become wildly successful, and one of the key factors in creating exponential growth is being first to market and staying there. This is no small challenge, but our guest today can help. Dr. Alexa D'Agostino is an educator, an angel investor, a serial entrepreneur who has successfully founded more than 15 ventures, a self-confessed tech nerd, and a highly regarded consultant and coach. She's a contributor to Forbes magazine and Entrepreneur magazine, and Alexa has been featured on CBS, NBC, Fox, USA Today, and The Wall Street Journal. She is currently the CEO of two international companies, which she founded, ThynkFuel and Thynktank Coaching, and still somehow finds time to personally contribute to others in many ways, including being with us on our show today. Alexa, fantastic to have you with us.
Thank you. I need to get that intro. That was great. Love it.
We are thrilled. Well, you're a doer and a teacher, right? The old saying, you're breaking the mold of the old saying of those who can do and those who can't teach. You do both, and you remain active in those regards. It's very fascinating. I'd love to hear you, if you wouldn't mind sharing, how did you get to be doing what you are doing today?
Yeah. So my family's from Cuba. So when they came to America, they couldn't speak English. So they had to be entrepreneurs. So I grew up with entrepreneurship. Everybody in my family's entrepreneurship. So I guess you could say a little bit of an unfair advantage to entrepreneurship. So started my first business at 8, second at 12. First official business at 18, though, and started that business. It grew pretty quickly. And I got to be honest, at first I didn't know what I was doing. I was literally just getting started, learning skills, learning how to run a business, learning how to deal with clients. And that quickly grew. And my clients started asking me to come on as equity partners, ended up having 3 exits, ended up selling that business in 2014. And kind of going on a spiritual journey to figure out what I wanted to do. And that's how I landed in teaching. So I got a PhD, started to teach, realized how much I love teaching, but then also realized how much I don't love teaching in higher ed for many reasons, because I felt really constrained. And so I ended up starting a coaching business and started coaching business and teaching people how to start their business and excel and do what I've done in my career. And now I'm here. And so now I run a full service agency, ThynkFuel, and then Thynktank, which is our coaching agency.
Really, really interesting stuff. So you take that background of the educational approach, and now you're helping business owners put hands and feet on that in the real world. That's really interesting. Now, does your investing involve some of that as well?
Yeah, so there's definitely a few investments that I've made that have been students or people that I've coached. And a lot of times we'll come on as either an advisor to a company or we'll come on in a bigger role with our marketing agency. So we do both. But, I do a lot of investment outside of business too. We do a lot of real estate and flips and what have you. So we do a lot of different types of investments.
That's one of the benefits of creating a great income for yourself. You can expand your interest in your investments. So, Alexa, the theme today is getting to market first. And as I mentioned in the intro, there's an awful lot of innovation going on today. Many, many new companies being founded in every sector. And even I saw one report recently, the so-called unicorns, those like extraordinarily successful, usually tech-oriented ventures, have also increased in number, something like 5 times the usual number last year over the previous year. So there's a lot going on. So in that context, what does it even mean to be first to market? Is that becoming tougher, like to truly find something unique, or are there different ways to define how that can work in a different vertical? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I think it depends on what you mean by first to market, right? Look at Uber. Technically, they weren't necessarily first to market when it comes to taxis, right? But what they did is they took an innovative spin to things. I think, but what they did is they came in with a different angle. And so I think that sometimes we think first to market means it has to be a unique product that doesn't exist. That's not really the case, right? It's sometimes as entrepreneurs, you try to complicate things and we try to, make things shiny new, when sometimes all you have to do is put a little spin on things. And I look at a lot of the things that I have put out into the marketplace, and that is a lot of what we've done. We've taken concepts and ideas and we've put our own spin on them. And yes, so when it comes to the concept, it's first to market. And we do have several products right now that are first to market, one of which we're working on that's right now have a valuation of 300 million, and it's first to market. But there was a lot of education that had to go into it because it really was a very unique concept. So, sometimes first to market and how you define that, it really depends, right?
For sure. So I think the first thought that I at least have when I'm thinking of first to market and putting a different spin is I'm thinking on the innovation side. Like there's a little different bell or whistle, there's a little different service offering or way of presenting a service offering. Is that most of it, or how much of it is primarily maybe on the other side of the coin, which would be your branding, your messaging, the uniqueness of the way that you're presenting yourself to your market? How do you kind of suss that out?
Yeah, I think it's both, right? So I'll give you two different examples, an ed tech app that I'm CEO of that a press release is actually going out today about it, and then my coaching program. I think I'm first to market on both, and I'll explain why in different ways. So our coaching program, there is no coaching program like our coaching program. I've done them all. I've done research, and we've all done research. I've yet to find, and maybe there is, but there's really nobody doing what we're doing in the coaching space. So while there's a lot of coaching programs, we're first to market in how we're delivering the service, right? In our messaging and what we're doing. The second example is our ed tech. It's called Aluna, and it's a tutoring app. However, the way we're delivering the service is very different. Think about the Uber for tutoring. If you have one math problem and you need a tutor for 7 minutes, you can now click a button, tell them what you need, and it's going to find you a certified teacher to actually walk you through and help you with that. There's tutoring apps, but not like that. So again, we're taking a concept and spinning it a little bit differently first to market because there's nothing like that out there. And there's so many different reasons why this is going to change education. And we already had a $38 million offer. We haven't even launched the app yet. The launch is July 1st, right? So because everybody's like, oh my goodness, this is incredible. This is going to change education. And so I think, again, two different examples, one that is taking a spin on the messaging and the service, and one that's taking a very old concept that have been used for years and centuries and so forth, and adding technology to it, just like Uber, right? That's all they did. They took the taxi, and think about this. I can't live without Uber anymore. Like I can't. How do we live without, Uber, right? And so I think, and Uber Eats too, it's like the same thing. It's like revolutionary. You had people delivering before, but now it's just, you get it when you want and how you want it.
Yeah. Well, even if I'm not mistaken, in the Big Apple, didn't Yellow Cab decide they couldn't beat them, so they joined them? Don't they have a cooperative agreement in place with Uber? So yeah, very powerful. So it almost sounds like shameless copying is allowed when it comes to being first to market. So I love the general conversation we've been having. Why don't let's break it down a little bit and go deeper on this now. If we could, how important is it to be first to market? Number one. Number two, how do most founders or companies who might maybe want to reinvent themselves, how are they doing this wrong? And then thirdly, I'd love to hear your recommendations on how to do it the right way. So let's start with that first one. How important is that?
Sorry. I think that in general, if you could be first to market, obviously it's a good idea. You're first in the market, but you know what they say? It's really easy to copy. So look at, how Lyft came after Uber. And, so at the end of the day, it's so much harder to be first to market and then remain there. It is so difficult. So there's a challenge with it too, but yet you have a brand recognition. So when you look at, all the brands that are first to market, they have that brand recognition, but at the same time, it's so hard. And you can have patents and this and that, but software patents and technology patents, it's so easy to get around them in different ways. So it's it's good to be first to market, but if you're going to be first to market, like look at Clubhouse, for example, they were first to market and they're starting to get trampled by everything else because they just didn't do a good job keeping the user base, keeping the momentum. They didn't have enough funding to really put the necessary changes that the users want. They lost a huge amount of user base and now everybody's going elsewhere, right? So that's a perfect example of somebody that was first to market. They had a lot of recognition. They had every opportunity in the world to crush it, and they didn't because they just didn't do it right. So mistakes is if you're going to be first to market, you have to speed of implementation. You have to have funds to really keep going before a competitor comes in and just blows you out of the water. The second, you have to rapidly change. One thing I can say is users, especially in beta or when you launch a brand new app, users are really kind. Like they are kind to you. They're very like, okay, this is a new app. And I can tell you because of apps I've launched, but also witnessing things like Clubhouse, people are very understanding, but how quickly are you actually changing and taking the recommendations from people that are your biggest users? And so that's one of the things that I could say that some of the apps that I have used and seen that did not do well is because they have big users that are using this, bringing money to the platform, and they don't treat them differently. And they should, because these are the people that are promoting your app. These are the people that are using the app and bringing people there. Then you need to listen to their feedback, or at least acknowledge it, because then it makes you not want to use it or use, and I'm using apps as an example. So hopefully, and I think I answered the first two, but I don't remember what the third one was.
Well, I want to get to your recommendations on how to do it right. You've been sharing some of those, but you bring up some really great stuff I want to kind of circle back on. So being first to market isn't necessarily a be-all and end-all. The advantages are you're creating some buzz around something interesting. Does that kind of generate some of those initial sales? If you do it right, obviously there's got to be good publicity, good solid marketing and branding. Assuming you do those things well and that the product has some value to it, being first to market, if I'm hearing what you're saying, it sounds like that can create some early momentum for you. But then if you don't have a continuing culture of innovation, you can still get left behind. Is that fair? Is that kind of what you were saying?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And it's about evolving whatever you're doing quickly and making sure, because obviously if you're launching something and it starts to hit, that means that you have a customer base that has a problem that you're solving. Right. And at the end of the day, that means you're doing a good job in that stance, but the market changes and shifts so quickly. And so being able to shift with it very quickly, it's no longer, a 3 to 10 year cycle of things staying the same. It's changing every 3 to 6 months that there's new things coming out. And I mean, it's a global market, so things are just changing so quickly. So that feedback loop is really important.
Well, and that's another critical point that I really like that you mentioned there. This has come up with other really knowledgeable founders that I've talked to, and that is that there's a tendency inside of many of these companies to, you're smart people, right? You come up with a great solution to a problem, and there's reason for you to be self-confident in what you're doing. However, if there's not an ear to what your users are telling you, if that's not part of that feedback, and if you're not iterating again based on that, you're basically setting yourself up to be left behind. Whereas if you kind of have to go in with that as your plan. I mean, if you're a restaurant owner, you've got a basic menu in place, you know what you're doing. But if your customers are buying one thing over another and you don't respond, then you're kicking yourself, right?
Exactly.
So what can you do to kind of be better prepared for that? Are there some steps internally that need to be in place to help you be better ready? I mean, there's a lot. Change is difficult as it is. How do you manage that? Because that's almost like you're almost asking the founder to do even more than what they've already done and creating an amazing solution and building a team, bringing it to market. Okay, now we've also got to have an innovation piece. Talk to us about that. What's required to be successful on that end of things?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I could tell you what we've done in the different apps that we've developed and the different companies that we've developed it's to me, marketing by modification. It's our trademark philosophy that we use in everything that we do is get it out, test it, tweak it, get it out, test it, tweak it. And it's just a loop. And so that's what we do with all of our companies. And that's also what we do with all of our marketing. It's what we even do that with people. Like I'm not kidding. You could use this modification philosophy with anything, but I'll bring staff in, test them out for 2 weeks, see if they work. If not, I change it. Like I do this loop with everything in my life. And even with this company that we're about to launch, we've been testing it with a few school districts and getting their feedback and hearing it and putting, so we're already pre-launch and we've put it out in an alpha that people are testing. And then when we went to beta, we had more testing, and now we're ready to fully launch July 1. And we've already had a lot of feedback implemented before we've even launched this thing. So, and the thing with my company too, same thing. You know, I always tell a story about how I lost 50,000 to gain $1 million. It's because you have to constantly be looking at what is and isn't working and fix those things so that you can make more revenue in the long run. It's okay to lose money. It's okay to lose users. It's okay to lose whatever, but you have to make sure that you're continuously improving and changing. And if that's not part of your, as a CEO or a head of sales or whatever your role is, if you're not constantly looking, how can I improve? And not just numbers, not just revenue, because revenue comes when things are humming. So sometimes we're so focused on revenue that we're not looking at the nitty gritty of the things that actually need to change to create that revenue.
So how do you break this down into your the actionable steps that you need to take inside your company? And I guess maybe a better way of phrasing the question is, how do you know when you need to really focus on reiterating your solution? Is there a way to measure when it's time to make a change? Because, there's a lot that goes into just having a product that's mature enough to be well supported and then to market it effectively. So what are your signs and what are the steps you need to take?
Yeah, I mean, we had a product that was brand new to market. Nothing was out there like this thing. I mean, it was very unique. It's a really cool prediction game. And, in the beginning, obviously, like when you launch these types of things, it's new, right? It's something new. Nobody knows. And it's really something that you have to educate the user base on. So what they did, which was genius, is they brought a lot of influencers in to bring the trust factor, right? So not only the user base, but the celebrities immediately brought that trust factor. And so now they were like, oh, okay, if so-and-so is using it, let me go test this out. And there was a lot of education. So in the beginning, when they logged on, it taught, okay, here's what it is. Here's why this is important. Here's how you win, da-da-da. There's a lot of education in it. So I think that's something that's really important, is really understanding if it is really fresh, new to market, what's the education and the change? Because you're changing culture, you're changing habits, you're changing the way people do things. And it's the same kind of with Uber, right? And we've mentioned them a lot today because they're one of the best that I've seen in changing an entire dynamic of an industry, right? So the education piece is really, really important.
And what form would that take? Is that just in your marketing, or what are some of the other ways that you would educate?
Yeah, I think it's in everything. It depending on what your business is, that matters too. Whether it's a service base, whether it's an app, a product, whatever it is, you've got to talk about the features and the benefits differently. So a lot of times people will talk a lot about the features of their product or the app and not the actual benefits of it. So how is it going to benefit me? So really understanding your talking points correctly, and distinguishing what are the benefits of using whatever service or product that I'm selling, and really understanding that piece and making sure that people understand first and foremost, like, what am I getting? And that's the first thing. Not like nobody cares it's a, size 8, blue jeans, right? What they care is, oh, it's so comfy and it's beautiful. And, you can go jogging in them. They're so comfortable, right? Like it's the way that you want to talk about your service or your product. And that's the first and foremost, is really positioning your service or product correctly. That's the first step. Then the second is content. Content is not king. Content is queen. Data is king. But because without data, you can't understand what content's working. But content is still really, really important. So education is so important. People use social media, in my opinion, completely wrong. You have to use social media to educate, and to build relationships and have conversations with your folks. And a lot of times the conversations are one-way streets, but what it has to be is a two-way conversation. Have relationships, build relationships with your users, and educate them, give them value, educate them. So we work with fintech all the time, and fintech is one of the best where we educate. Especially, we have a lot of crypto clients, for example, and we do a lot of education to our clients. They're our clients' because it's a brand new thing and it's changing constantly. So we focus a lot on educational and value-driven content. So that's, in my opinion, the most important thing.
Is that one misstep too? Is that, I see an awful lot of social media posts from companies that look really polished, very professional, and frankly pretty vanilla. Pretty boring. They don't really engage. Was that a pretty big gap? Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is I would say 9 out of 10 social media companies do not know how to develop content that sells, because you could develop content that is value driven that sells. I look at just even my personal brand. I mean, I don't even want to tell you the amount of revenue we make off my Instagram and my LinkedIn. It's a crazy amount of money every month, right? It's because we're developing content in a way that's striking conversations. We're going on the ledge a little bit to put questions out there and content that piques people's interest, but then they're like, I want to know more about this, right? To be honest, we leave it all on the table. People get scared to put too much out there. No, put it all out there, because at the end of the day, if I tell people my exact lead gen strategy and they want to go do it and it works, great, I'm really happy for you. But 9 out of 10 times, most people don't want to go do it themselves. So what are they going to do? They're going to hire me to do it.
Right. And you've pre-validated the value of your approach. So they're already sold on that, and they want to do it, and now they're frustrated. That's like me when I started fixing an appliance here at the house, and I still call the professional to come in, right?
Exactly.
And so that you're setting yourself up for more success. Now, is this something that you think the founder is best positioned to take on? Is this something a team can do? What are some of your recommendations around it? Not everyone has the charisma to do that who's a founder. I've talked to some geeky, smart people that really don't love a camera, let's just say. Is this something that they could train somebody else, or can a firm, is that where maybe a character-based branding can help, or what are your thoughts around that side?
I'm going to push back a little bit on you here, because I actually think a geeky founder is awesome. And, and yes, I think, look, I've been in our ed tech, I'm the CEO and we have a president. I'm the front facing because I'm the CEO. He's behind the scenes because he doesn't want to be. So he purposely hired me for a lot of different reasons, because I have an education background and an app background, so it fits perfectly. But he purposely hired me because I'm a woman Latina with an education in tech, right? To be the front-facing person, because I also have a personal brand. I don't mind jumping on, national television and talking about this. Where he's like, I don't want to go on NBC, like, get out of here, right? So he purposely put somebody in that CEO position that can be front-facing for the company. You have to have somebody front-facing. But here's the reality. People want to do business with people they know, like, and trust now. If you look at any major founder, even look at, give me a big founder, Steve Wozniak, right? Go look at his social following versus Apple, right? He's going to have way more of a following, right? Elon Musk, same thing versus Tesla. He has way bigger of a following. So I do think that personal branding is incredibly important. And it's ironic because we do so much personal branding. Actually, I'd probably say a fourth of our clientele, we're doing all the social media for pretty big time CEOs that I'm not allowed to mention because I've signed off that I'm not allowed to say their names. But if I said their names, you'd be like, wow, you're the one doing their content? And I'm like, yeah. Right. So because they're realizing how important as a CEO, your number one job as a CEO is to sell. That's it. It doesn't mean you have to be on a sales call, but you are the one selling your company. And if you can't do that, then go be the president and hire a CEO to be front facing. And that's my opinion. It doesn't mean it's right, but I do think it's really important. And it's how we get a lot of press. I mean, I own a PR company, but I'm not even going out and getting press. I mean, they're coming to me, and it's because I have a brand out there and I'm putting content out there. It's gaining attention. The person with the most attention wins.
Well, that's it, right? The publicity piece of yesteryear has been replaced by maybe personal branding today, you might say. And is that I mean, that's probably a skill set, right? All of its own. You can go and learn that like any skill. If you're a founder, you don't feel comfortable with this, you've given us one option, which is, okay, let's switch the titles around, run your company, put someone in there that can do it. Are there other solutions that you would recommend? Is this maybe they can just go learn, maybe become better at it? What would you say to that?
That's a really great question. I'm going to tell a story. So when I sold, I kind of quickly went through my story. I didn't share the full story because we would be here until tomorrow. But you could go to my website, lex@agriseo.com, if you want the full story of my companies and why I sold my companies, et cetera. But what I will tell you is one of the reasons why I sold my last agency is because I started picking up bigger and bigger clients. And I missed kind of more of the mid-market, more smaller companies, more startup mode. And that was really my passion, seeing a blank slate and building something from the bottom up. Like, it's great working for the Skypes of the world, and they would, pay me $10 million. We'd walk away with $2 million. It's like 40 hours worth of work, where I would have other smaller client pay me $150,000. It's like hundreds of hours of work. So it's way more work, but it's way more fun, right? To build that kind of stuff. So I ended up selling it because I just wasn't, I lost kind of that passion for a couple years. And the reality is I had a 5-year non-compete. And when I came back 5 years later, when I left in 2014, personal branding was not a thing. I never once had to be in front of a room. I didn't have to speak. I didn't have to do any of that. I came back in 2019 and the whole world changed. And I could tell you I was sharing with you earlier, I have 5 degrees, 3 technical. I'm like a dork behind the scenes. I have a computer science degree, a cybersecurity degree, and an internet technology degree. Like, I'm like the dork behind that's like on Tableau, like building my own dashboards. I'm not I hate being front facing. But the reality was I very quickly realized I had to shift. And if I wanted to rebuild my company, people don't care about your company anymore. I guarantee you can ask most of my clients, and they probably don't even know my company name, to be honest with you. They came because of me or somebody on my staff, because I build out all of my staff brands. So the moral of the story here is, if you're not comfortable in front of a camera, just keep doing it. And eventually, if you don't like being in front of the camera, it's probably because you're not comfortable in front of it. As the more you do it, the more you get comfortable, the easier it gets. Now, I don't mind being in front of a camera. If you asked me 3 years, 4 years ago, I would have never been caught dead on national television. Dead. And now, like, I do it all the time. I'm flying to Texas in like 2 weeks to do another national appearance. So like, you just got to keep doing it because you have to. Because if you want to be front facing and you want to be the head of a mega company, you want more attention. You want more people to get to know you, because that matters, especially Gen Z. Gen Z will buy because of who you are, not because of who your company is. Yeah.
Or find a good celebrity. Back to that suggestion, right? Like a Ryan Reynolds, who's bought in and represents multiple companies.
Exactly.
Or Matthew McConaughey and his relationship with Wild Turkey Products.
Exactly.
No endorsement, by the way, audience. But anyway, these are great concepts. So I love it. So it's really important to put that human element, which is interesting in this tech age, right? And especially coming from a bona fide expert in the data, the digital marketing piece. The data is king, and yet really it has to loop back to a brand built around a personality if you really want to make a difference. Very interesting. Not very many tech companies have been taking that on. And obviously there's a growth curve for many. Well, Alexa, we've covered a lot of great ground in our show today. I wonder if we could kind of close out with some suggestions from you for members of our audience who might want to begin going out and implementing on what they've learned here today. And maybe they have an existing company, and maybe you give them some suggestions where they can spot some innovation and opportunities to maybe create a product, or in other ways become first to market. Maybe have other ways they could road map out their success. Hit us with some A, B, and C steps, if you would. What can people do?
Yeah, I mean, what I will say before I go into steps is I've failed more than I succeeded. But what I make sure is that my successes are worth more than my failures. So my advice to you is just get out there and try things, and try different things, see if it works. If it doesn't, you have to give it time, because, think about this. There's a destination you want to go. If you've never been there, most people don't succeed because they run out of gas before they get to the destination. They give up, right? So you have to make sure you have enough gas, maybe put a GPS in your car, aka a coach or a mentor or somebody that's done it, a business partner that's maybe done it before, so that you have the right directions to go, and just try different things. And my best advice is just modify that. Like, that is literally the number one thing. So what I like to do is I really like market research, but I don't like doing too much market research. Sometimes what happens, you have companies that do too much market research and they don't just put the product out. So I always love, like, I sell things before I have them, by the way. So every single service or product that I've ever had, I've sold out before I even launched the product. And then, I obviously back into that, right? Depending if it's a product or if it's a service on the time to market. But pretty much every single service that I've had, I've built it after. The whole phrase "build it and they will come," I don't believe that. I get sales first and then I build it. And you don't always have to launch with a finalized product. So that's the next step. Like, realize that you can launch with a beta and launch with a watered down version, get the feedback, because so many times my companies I've launched in the past, like years, 10, 15 years ago, I launched a finalized product and then nobody bought it. And I spent all this time and money building something and nobody wanted it. So my whole philosophy shifted to find out what the market needs, inquire what they need, figure out what the solution is for that. Is it feasible? Can I do it? And if I can do it, put out a watered down version of it, see if it starts to catch, and then keep going. And so that's how I've done. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do this. This is just how I've done it, and it's helped me be successful. So,
excellent. Well, Alexa, very, very good content today, as I expected it would be. Let me pause and just thank our sponsor, Overpass. Overpass is the world's leading low-cost platform that allows you to hire top-quality remote workers very quickly. You can create your free account and start hiring people in a matter of days at overpass.com. And Alexa, once again, thanks for being with us today and offering such great value to our audience.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was a great conversation.
All right. Thanks again for being with us as well, everyone, today on the live stream. Let's get out there and innovate. Have a great rest of your afternoon and weekend. Take care.